Yeah, well, I think scrimmage number 2, obviously in the books. It was good to see improvement today. I thought pretty much in all areas, all facets, we improved individually by player wise and then by unit wise, and that which I think ultimately we improved as a team. We're not where we need to be yet. There's a lot of areas for us to get better at. But the encouraging part is we knew this was going to be a big week from a developmental standpoint, and I think the guys really responded. I thought just some highlights from today. That some receivers made some plays today. Clearly, I think Jay Witt really showed up. Marcus Washington showed up today. It was good to get Troy. Troy got involved, O'Meary in the scrimmage today, and that was positive. And Calvante showed up today. I thought the runners ran the ball well. On the defensive side, I really thought the defensive line has been a consistent component for us, and that showed up again today. Jacoby Jones, Coburn, those guys were really effective. And I thought in the back end, we were able to get a couple balls out, which that's not great offensively. But the fact that we're able to get the ball out, create some turnovers, that was effective as well. So all in all, a positive day. But also I think, especially when we go look at this tape, there's going to be some really glaring things that we're going to need to work on, which we need to get done here Tuesday and Thursday, with next Saturday being the spring game.
Thanks, Coach. We'll go ahead and go to questions. Start with Chris Tavares.
Steve, kind of two questions. You said you're not where you need to be anywhere near it. Is that at where you want to be at this point in the spring? And then also, what do you want to accomplish? What needs to get done for you to feel good heading into the offseason in this final week of spring practice?
Well, I equate everything to the fall. Where we need to be when we actually kick off to start the season. Where we are now, I'm like I said, I'm pleased with where we're at because we've made strides from practice 1 through practice 12, through what we did from scrimmage 1 to scrimmage 2. I am pleased with that. I think where I'd like to get to by next Saturday, by the end of spring ball, is just operationally being smoother on both sides of the ball, the communication on both sides of the ball, the adjustments that need to be made within the play, whether it's pre-snap and or pro-snap as the play unfolds, and those things just becoming more natural to the guys. We right now we have, I think, the majority of the guys trying to do it, but we're not all there all of the time. And then when we make those mistakes, when we have a breakdown in communication or a breakdown in adjustment, clearly that's when you get hurt. And that's no different than when the fall rolls around. And we want to be a really clean, disciplined football team. And when I say clean, meaning everybody's in unison, everybody's on the same page. And we can't have as many of those types of breakdowns as we're having right now.
Jeff Howe, you're up.
Hey, Sark, just wanted to ask you about two of the younger offensive linemen in particular, with Tyler Johnson and Isaiah Hookfin. Just how has their progress been this spring? And then that O-line group as a whole, with a week to go in the spring, how would you kind of gauge that group's process, their development through spring ball?
Well, I think both those two young guys are both big physical players. We're trying to get them to a point to where they're not really processing as much and thinking as much, and where they can cut it loose and play physical and play big like they are. And so that's going to take time. As a younger player, sometimes that's just where you're at. We just got to try to get that out of them. I think in general, we've put a lot on these guys offensively. We put a lot on them up front. We've got a lot of different run game schemes. We got a lot of different protections. And I think that the key to the drill up front in offensive line play, one, it starts with communication. And when we can communicate and all get on the same page, then we can start to cut it loose. And you see flashes of that. And you see other times where there's some breakdowns when we don't. And then you see a little bit of where younger players can get themselves in positions where we don't win our one-on-ones, but they're going against a good defensive front. And so, they have some good moments. They have some moments where it's not as good. But the whole key to playing good up front as an offensive unit, as an offensive line unit, is communicating and being on the same page consistently. And that's where we need to get to by next week.
Nick Moyle, you're up.
Yeah, Sark. Thankfully, y'all don't have too many injuries, but there have been a few key guys out, and DeMarvion, Tavondre, Jake, and Derek. So what's the coaching staff do, I guess, just to make sure those guys don't fall behind, and then individually, what do they also have to do just to take it on themselves to make sure they're not far behind when they can get back on the field?
Well, I think coming to meetings with the real intent to learn, and that's challenging when you're not going to practice that day. But really being engaged in a meeting setting, really being engaged during practice, having a script, watching the plays, thinking yourself through your assignment, what the communication should be. It's engagement. Ultimately, when you're injured, it's easy to kind of drift off and not be engaged and not be involved. And so the challenge for us as coaches and the challenge for them as individual players is really the same, keeping them engaged or staying engaged from a player's perspective.
Cole Thompson, go ahead.
Hey, Sark. So a couple of weeks ago, Josh Thompson was talking about the development of young guys such as JD Coffey and the new additions of Darian Dunn. Just what have you seen from them and Jameer as well, just in coverage in the secondary?
Well, I think what you see from those players is you see the kind of highlight plays, right? Maybe it's an interception, maybe it's a big hit. The challenge for a younger player is to play with consistency. Great players, really start by being great by being where they're supposed to be and making the plays they're supposed to make. It's not that they go out and make a bunch of highlight great plays. They're in position to make the great play when it presents itself. But really great players, especially in the back end, they just do what they're supposed to do consistently over and over and over. They're where they're supposed to be over and over and over. They make the tackle when it presents itself, and then they make the highlight play. And so what we're trying to impress upon the new guys in the back end is just be consistent, do your job down after down after down. And then when the opportunity presents itself for the interception or the big hit, you make that as well. So that's what we're striving for with those guys.
Anwar, you're up.
Hey, Coach. I know some coaches view the spring game as just one practice. Other people put a little bit more weight on that because it's in front of a crowd. It's under the lights, so to say. So I'm just kind of curious for next week, how do you view that spring game in your evaluation process?
Well, for me, I'd like to see the guys, we'll split up into teams, and I like to see the guys go play. Football is a game, and it's meant to be fun, and it's meant to be enjoyable. And I want the guys to be in that frame of mind. But two, I want to see the guys that can really process and understand the situations within the game and third downs, red area, goal line, whatever it is that shows itself up, that they can get the calls from the sidelines. It's not scripted. Adjust to the scenarios as they present themselves, the situation as they present themselves, and play smart football. And that'll be part of the evaluation. That can they go into a game with a game plan and then ultimately execute it based on the situations as they come and it not being scripted in practice.
Brian Davis, go ahead.
Steve, you've mentioned before about the importance of catching the ball on the move for receivers. And I wonder what you've seen out of this receiving core. Do you feel like these are guys that are, 7-8 yards, catch the ball and get tackled? Or do you think that they can turn mid-range catches into long catches and long catches into home runs?
Well, I think we have, every player is different. I hate to lump everybody just into one category. I think we have some players on our roster that do have some big play capability. The challenge with that is if you're just a home run hitter, It's like in baseball, right? If you're a 380 hitter, a 350 hitter, but all you hit singles and doubles, you become a possession type receiver. If you're just a home run hitter, but you bat 200, but you have the capability of hitting a home run, then that's what you are as a receiver. You're a big play guy. Ideally, I'd like the guys that you can count on because they're consistent, but also have the capability of hitting home runs. And that's your 300, 315, 320 hitter that can also hit home runs. And that's the kind of the sweet spot we're looking for, right? You love the reliable receiver that still has the ability to hit home runs. And I think we have guys on our roster that are capable of that. Some guys right now may be closer to more of a possession type guy, but are consistent. Some guys might be more, big play guys, but aren't quite as consistent yet. But that's what we're trying to almost squeeze them all into that box. And I think we're working towards that. We're getting there. And I think they're understanding that, but we still, like I said, we've got a ways to go to get there.
Danny Davis, go ahead.
Steve, kind of going back to what you were just talking about the spring game, is splitting it into teams, is that your preferred format? Is there a right way to do a spring game as far as formats are concerned?
I don't know. That's just what I've tried to do when you can. I always felt like it was kind of awkward when you try to play like an offense versus defense. The scoring never feels right. The fans don't know kind of what's happening. So you try to create a scenario where it is game-like. You can create those game-like situations. It's real football scoring so that people can follow along with what's happening. I think it's just more enjoyable for everybody.
Kirk Bowles, go ahead.
Yes, Sark. Who's got the best work ethic on the team, if you could name 2 or 3 players? And have you found that some are lacking that the work ethic that you want to be a championship team?
Oh, man, just great work ethic wise. I mean, we've got a lot of guys that bring it. I got to be quite honest with you. I mean, these guys, Cade Brewer jumps out. Roshan Johnson jumps out. I mean, we've got a lot of guys. I mean, I'd hate to, I feel like if I single people out, then I'm leaving people out. I mean, David Benda jumps out to me, Ray Thornton. But again, there's a lot of guys. And I think naturally, like I've said before, we've got a great deal of buy-in right now. We've got a football team that has bought into the ideas, philosophies, principles, values, intentions that we want in our program. Some guys get there quicker than others, and our job as coaches is to get them all the way in. And I think gradually along the way, we've had some guys kind of straggle a little bit, and we as coaches have tried to pull them in, and I think they've responded. The cool part for me right now is the players are now starting to do that. And that's the sign of when your team is starting to become a team, that they're understanding the expectations of the coaching staff. And when somebody's not meeting those expectations, they're the ones pulling those players back into where we need to be. And that's a good sign for us that we're headed in the right direction.
Terry Middleton, go ahead.
Coach, thanks for being here today. Appreciate it.
Sure.
So I saw an interview where you were talking about AJ and how he's your right-hand man, and because he understands your mindset. So I want to ask you a question about your mindset. They say the greats operate with fine brush strokes. And so just from who you are as a coach and a former player, what are some of the fine brush strokes that you're using for the team or for a particular player that, it's your brush stroke, but it's that fine detail that makes you great and makes the team great?
Oh. And I've never thought of that analogy before like that about me. So you're kind of put me on the spot. When I was a player, I was a cerebral player, and I've really tried to see the game for the little things. And it's one thing to have an installation. It's another to see the game for the game within the game, whether it's the matchups, whether it's the complementary plays off of plays, or from a defensive perspective, recognizing when they run a certain play, get ready for them to be setting up the next play. So trying to stay ahead from that mindset. And with all of that, I believe in a really physical brand of football. And probably the idea that, man, we are a cerebral team that plays really hard and really physical, and how to balance those things, I think, is the fine, brush stroke, of like, how do you do all of this, think this way, attack this way, get the players to think that way, but yet be really physical in our approach in doing that. And when's the right time to talk physicality? When's the right time to talk scheme and how to attack people and whatnot? And, I don't know if that's really unique to me. I think that's what good teams do. And that's just our approach and how we go about it.
Time for 2 last ones. Jeff Howe, you're up.
Hey, Sark, Anthony Cook is a guy you've mentioned to us a few times this spring that you've liked, that stood out. How has that progress continued with him? And then with he and Chris Adamora in that nickel position, is the defensive staff, are they kind of, molding the personnel to ideally what they want that nickel position to look like? And what does that process look like?
Well, I think the cool piece to it all with Anthony and Chris is they provide us a lot of versatility. They're a little bit different players, but yet they're versatile players. They're tough, they're physical. They have man-to-man capabilities. They have capabilities of playing the safety position. They give us some multiplicity at that position and or flexibility, because they can play multiple positions that we need. To think we're going to go through an entire season without injuries is not really realistic. And so you have to have players that can do more than just be one-dimensional players. And those two guys provide that for us.
Last one, Anwar, you're up.
Hey, Coach, 2 quick last ones for you. I guess I wanted to ask how, Casey and Hudson performed in the scrimmage today. The other question, too, was, of the things that you were trying to accomplish or hoping to accomplish in spring ball, how close do you feel like you guys are to being able to check off those lists of, goals that you set for yourself?
Well, I think Casey and Hudson both really played well today. They really did. I'm just kind of recapping it in my brain. I would say for the most part, they played really well. But we have right now at that position, we have too many kind of negative plays that, they take the brunt of it, because, when you get sacked on first down, you play second long football, that's hard to win. So then we're trying to cut down on those plays, which I think we did from a week ago. But we're also trying to spotlight those plays to let them know even a few are not acceptable. But I thought they both used their legs well today in creating plays down the field, extending plays, finding people, down the field to create explosive plays for us, which was better than we did a week ago. They extended drives. They scored in the red area. But again, there's still a lot to do at that position, and we take a lot of pride in that position. So still a lot to do. I would say ultimately, as a team, I do think we're checking boxes, but I do think there's almost 2 boxes to check. There's the box that, did we get these things installed? Did we teach it? Yes. Are we where we need to be in all of these areas? No. And so some of those boxes, they've gotten checked, but still plenty of room for improvement in a lot of areas on our football team.
Thanks, Coach. Appreciate the time.
All right, y'all. Thank you. Have a good weekend.
Thanks, Coach.